When you make a decision to have something or do something or accomplish something, basically what you do is fall in love with that. And when you fall in love with something, it creates a passion to keep you moving forward. But if you're not totally in love with it, if it's a half-hearted decision, then you're going to get a half-hearted result if you get one at all. But if you want something in your life, you got to decide to have it. So you got to make a decision. You got to take action. Even if you're beginning something, there's something you can do that will move that needle forward while you're getting ready. But so many people are getting ready to get going and they never get going because they think they've got to get everything perfect before they can execute. And then when you execute, you're going to come face to face with your own comfort zone. And that's going to cause you to have to step out and experience some discomfort. Because anything new you're doing, you've never done it before, it's going to be a little uncomfortable going into it. It's simple stuff. If you let go of the need for approval, you get approval. If you let go of the need to be in control, you're in control. If you need control, you're out of control. You can't be yourself when you're trying to be somebody else, when you're trying to control an audience. So the key is to walk out on stage.
Who would you give credit for that 1 year for you getting from 15 cents to $1 million?
Myself.
Jim Britt is one of the world's foremost experts in human performance, mindset, and personal transformation. A top international speaker, author of 15 best-selling books, Jim has spent decades studying what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. He's mentored over 300 corporations, trained more than 1 million people worldwide, and his teachings on awareness, behavior, and belief systems have reshaped how leaders think about growth, both personally and professionally. Today, his Power of Letting Go framework is helping entrepreneurs and executives alike break through mental barriers, eliminate hesitation, and move forward with clarity and confidence in a fast-changing world.
I think people said, what inspired you to keep going? I said, inspiration and desperation. I didn't want to go back to where I was, and I was inspired to do something more with my life.
90% of the people do fear when they go to the stage. The rest 10% are lying. Means like everyone is hesitant and public speaking is not easy. How did you pull it? Welcome, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You have spent over 45 years of life public speaking in a lot of conferences, addressing over 5,000 of audiences. How did you do that? I mean, this is the major fear factor that personally I have seen. I know a lot of people, and public speaking is not easy. How did you pull it?
Well, I was kind of forced into it. I started out my career in speaking, promoting another speaker for about a year, and continued that along too, but it kind of forced me into speaking. And I'd say that was my greatest fear because they said, what'd you feel like getting up in front of an audience? I said, terrified. So initially I was terrified. I remember the first speaking engagement I did. I walked on stage. There was about 1,000 people, and it was like I couldn't quite see. It was like everybody was a kind of an image, but I couldn't quite see them nice and clear. And as I spoke, it sounded like my voice was coming from outside of me instead of from inside out. So it was quite a relief when I walked off of that stage. But that was an introduction to somebody else. That was my first time in front of an audience, and I pretty much said to myself, never again will I ever do that.
Okay.
And then after a while, I thought, well, got one or two choices: never do it again, or do it often until you get better at it. And I almost chose not to do it again because it was so hard. But I chose the other direction, obviously, and it was hard. I'd say for the first year, every time I would get up in front of an audience, it would, I get this tight feeling in my stomach, this nervous feeling, and
Yeah.
a lot of speakers say you get that from forever, but I don't. I got it for a year, maybe a little bit in the second year, but after that, I really didn't. I was very comfortable speaking.
I was watching a YouTube video of a world famous public speaker. He actually won a Toastmaster World Championship also. Forgetting his name, but what the message was that 90% of the people do fear when they go to the stage, even if they have like whatever number of years of experience, number of conferences they did. But he said the rest 10% are lying.
Or not lying.
are lying. Means like everyone is hesitant.
Well, you don't know your audience yet.
Hmm.
But I think when you step up on stage, you have two things you want to happen. You want to control your audience. You want to get their approval. And most speakers are kind of desperately trying to control the audience and desperately trying to keep their approval in different ways. They may come out on stage, yelling at the audience like, how are you doing today? And they go, fine, and I can't hear you, and things like that. That's not for the audience. That's for that person, because it helps them overcome their fear and gets them loosened up. But the key is, if you let go of the need for approval, you get approval. If you let go of the need to be in control, you're in control. If you need control, you're out of control. You can't be yourself when you're trying to be somebody else, when you're trying to control an audience. So the key is to walk out on stage, letting go of those two things, the need for control and approval, and be yourself. A good example, I was in New York a few years ago. The guy asked me, he said, what do you need? A person organizing it. And he said, what do you need? I said, a bar stool and a lavalier. He goes, okay. We had, 1,000 to 1,500 people there. And I walked out on stage very calmly. I walked over to one side, made some comments, and walked to the other side of the stage very slowly and made a few comments, and went over and sat down on a bar stool and started addressing the audience. And after about 5 minutes, the guy that organized the event was back in the back of the room, and he was going like this, get up, get up.
Okay, don't sit longer.
But I didn't get up.
Okay.
I sat there for 3 hours
Okay.
and addressed the audience.
3 hours.
3 hours.
One go.
Yeah, and then we took a lunch break.
Okay.
And he's about 30 minutes into our lunch break, I connected with him, and he said, man, he said, I've never seen anything like that. I said, like what? And he said, you didn't get off that bar stool for 3 hours. He said, I thought you were going to lose the audience. He said, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me during the lunch and said, I could listen to this guy for days, because I like to have discussions with the audience.
Yeah.
I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not, trying to rev them up. I want to get inside them. I want to get them to think and look and feel and experience things that help them change their life.
You're saying like be yourself and just go for it. It's better said than done. Like,
Well,
what is
it
that
is.
magic key to turn that?
Yeah, but you can't be anybody else anyway. So
Yeah.
you might as
So
well be
what's
yourself.
the point here?
Yeah. So if you're out there and you're uncomfortable doing whatever you do, if you're uncomfortable sitting on a bar stool talking to an audience, don't do it. But I'm comfortable doing it. I'm comfortable not knowing how I'm going to start when I walk on stage, not knowing what I'm going to do next. And I'm comfortable engaging the audience or not engaging them. And some people have to have certain things to make them feel comfortable. But what I do before I go on stage is I stop for a moment and I let go of those two needs, the need for approval, the need to be in control. And then I go on stage. So I'll never forget the day. I'd probably been in front of, 100,000 people or more by the time that day rolled around, and I didn't have the fear anymore. Because I used to be in my room, in the hotel, and I'd just be thinking about it and kind of a little uptight. But that day's, I think it was, I was afraid that people would ask me a question that I couldn't answer. And that day, I decided that nobody could ask me a question I couldn't answer. Even if it's something I didn't know anything about, I could say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay. As long as
But if it's
we
something
accept
about
that.
my material or my insight, I understand certain things. The human mind, I don't understand how we see with our eyes. I don't understand how we hear. I don't understand how we're sending a vibration out based on a series of letters that put into a word that you understand what I'm talking about. I don't understand that stuff. I know it works. I'm good with it. But what I do understand is human behavior, why people do what they do. And so I decided that day before I went down to the meeting room that nobody could ask me a question I couldn't answer. And I went down totally calm instead of going down thinking, okay, how do I start this? And what do I do? And I just went down and my thought process was, let me at him because I was ready. And it's been that way ever since. I don't mind getting put on the spot. If somebody asks me a question, I don't mind. In fact, I encourage the audience to.
Your messages are very motivating and very encouraging. And I follow your tip of the day on LinkedIn daily.
Yeah.
And even if I know those, but it's a very good reminder that you're sending to the community, and it helps me personally. And that is why I reached out to you to have some longer conversation, because me and the audience, I'm sure, we're going to learn a lot from you today. Another factor that I want to talk to you is like cancer. You might think it's not related to this conversation, but cancer is kind of like among top reasons for killing people, right? And I was researching about hesitation, if it might have killed higher percentage of careers, right? But it's debatable, but a lot of researchers say that it's way higher than the number of people killed by cancer. The careers were killed by hesitation. And that's exactly what we are talking about, like public speaking. Like people get hesitated, people get in the dilemma, I can't do that. And your another message that I got from you, let it go. Okay. And then it's not easy. I mean, even if like there are ways, there are theories, there are practicals to let it go, but it doesn't go. Let's talk about that. So hesitation and let it go. Need to understand that more.
It's if I pick up this cup of water,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean now I need to hold this in my hand for the rest of my life? And the answer is no. I can set it down.
Until you want it, you have it, but
I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's say something happened to you in the past. Maybe you failed in business and lost all your money, and now you're faced with another business opportunity that's going to require some investment. And you think, well, I've got to go raise that money, or I've got to spend the last money I have to go in there, and then fear takes over. And so what you're doing is you're bringing that past experience into the current situation, which is not true. People say, well, I've invested in things like that before and it didn't work, or I invested in one of those things and it didn't work. I'm going, well, if you went to a restaurant, you had a meal and it was a terrible meal, would you go back to that restaurant? The answer is probably not, maybe not anyway.
But I said, give another try.
But would you quit
Maybe.
going to restaurants altogether because
No.
one of them was bad?
No.
No. So there's power in letting go. We lose our power from hanging on. If you got abused in the past, that's in the past. And you got to look at today as where you are today and where you want to go. When I first started, I'm a high school dropout, okay, halfway through the 10th grade, and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. 17 years old, I went to work in a gas station pumping gas. Did that for about a year. Got my dream job working in a factory on an assembly line. Worked there for a couple of years. Then somebody introduced me to a direct sales company. Never sold anything in my life. And the guy told me, I said, well, how do I make money? He said, talking to people. I said, how many people? He said, if you want to make a lot of money, 10 a day. I said, okay. Now this was back a lot of years ago, 50 years ago. I didn't know where to go talk to 10 people. We didn't have internet or anything like that. So I had to physically go find 10 people somewhere, in a shopping mall or a coffee shop or someplace.
Yeah.
And I did. Every day for a year, I talked to 10 people a day, some more than 10, never less. And by the end of that year, I talked to 3,650 people minimum. I made one sale. And I just thought I needed to talk to more people. I was stupid. I lost everything I owned. I got good at selling. I sold my boat, my camper, my pickup, my fishing equipment, my guns, and everything that was enjoyable to me, I had to sell to live. But even at the end of the year, I'd lost my home. I was 5 days from living on the street. I had no vehicles. I had a wife and a child, and I had 15 cents in my pocket. And I had to make a choice. I'm standing, I'll never forget, standing in the kitchen, looking out the window. And I thought, what am I going to do? I don't know anybody with money. I can't go borrow money. I don't have anything, and my home is foreclosed. I'm going to be on the street in 5 days. What am I going to do? And I kept thinking, and I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to the factory and get my old job back. And I thought, I can't do that. It's 15 miles away. I don't have a car. So I ruled that one out. And the more I stood there, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I'm going to make this work. And looking at, from today, looking back, I thought, that was stupid. 15 cents in your pocket, no food in the house, a wife and a child, you're on the street in 5 days.
That's insane.
But I made the choice, and I said, I'm not going to give up until I get rich doing this. In the next 24, really, but it was almost 48 hours for it to all solidify. The one sale I made, I go back to that person. I walk 3 miles. I lived in Oklahoma in the middle of the summer, over 100 degrees. I walked 3 miles carrying a 5-gallon pail of carpet shampoo, hoping he would buy another 5 gallons when I got there. Try walking, carrying a 5-gallon bucket for 3 miles in the heat. You're going to sit out about every 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that turned into an opportunity that earned me over $500,000 the next 12 months.
Wow.
And part of that was the opportunity they presented. I won't go into detail on it, but the opportunity they presented, it paid me $300 a week, which I needed desperately.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of money back then. It furnished me with a vehicle.
Yeah.
They bought me a new car. They owned it, but I got a new car. I got a 3-bedroom furnished apartment given to me. And I got the opportunity that earned me $500,000 the next 12 months and more money even after that. And when I got back home that day, I accepted, and they had a car, one of their cars parked there that they weren't using. He said, go ahead and he said, are you driving? And I said, no, somebody dropped me off. He said, well, if you want to take one of the cars home, go ahead. And so I drove home in a car, and telling my wife we had a 3-bedroom furnished apartment to go into. We'll have $300 in a week. And I had $20 from the sale of the carpet shampoo that he bought. And that gave us food for the week. And then somebody knocked on the door a few hours later, and it was somebody from the direct sales company, an executive, saying, I heard you're a hard worker, but you're not making any money. Said, can we talk? He came in. I had no furniture that had been repoed. A few sticks here and there, but we sat on my floor for 2 hours. He taught me what I was doing wrong, mostly what I was doing wrong and what I needed to be doing. And on the side, while I was doing this other opportunity, I was building the direct sales business. That one earned me $500,000 in the next 12 months. So I went from 15 cents to millionaire because I wouldn't quit. And one of the reasons I didn't quit, because I saw other people doing it. And I knew I was doing something that wasn't working, but I didn't know what it was. I think what happens, so many people, it's like they get into some opportunity business or whatever it might be, and it's like a plane taking off, and they go down the runway, and just as it's about to lift off, they quit.
It happens. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is a popular quote that like people usually quit right before the success moment.
And it's fear, it's fear. And it's also lack of commitment to the decision that you've made. If you don't, there is no such thing. Somebody says, I'm 110% committed. No, that's a lie. You can only be committed or not. There are no gray area. It's either you're committed or you're not.
What motivates you? And what he said, I like the answer, and that stuck with me. The host asked, like, what motivates you? What made you keep going, right? He said, like, if you decide, then there is no margin of motivation. You don't need motivation.
No, you don't.
Why you decided to start is the thing that you should keep going with, right? Why you started is you should ask this question to yourself. How does trust make it reality?
But if you look around this room, somebody made millions on this cup. Somebody made millions on these microphones and on this table and on those chairs and on those light bulbs and on those ceiling, on the carpet, on the sheetrock on the wall, everything. There's no lack of opportunities. There's lack of creativity. There's lack of decision making.
You mentioned you don't believe in law of attraction.
No, I don't think the law of attraction is even real. I think it's the law of creation. I think that when we change our mind and make a decision to have something, we see those things right in front of our noses. We don't attract them. If the law of attraction worked, we'd all be cruising in our 1,000 or 100-foot yacht in the Caribbean someplace.
The title of your book, Cracking the Rich Code. And what is in that book? You want to talk
Well,
about that a little bit?
You know, rich comes from the word to enrich, or to reach out and accomplish something more in your life. When you make a decision to have something or do something or accomplish something, basically what you do is fall in love with that. And when you fall in love with something, it creates a passion to keep you moving forward. But if you're not totally in love with it, if it's a half-hearted decision, then you're going to get a half-hearted result if you get one at all.
That's another thing. Like in the world, a lot of situations are made based on circumstances, based on tough situations, priorities at the moment, family situations, financial situations. A lot of situations are created and people are pushed into that. And sometimes, I would say, majority of the times, people compromise to live in that situation. Whatever the reason is, what's the passion to do here?
You
Like,
know,
what has to do that?
It's really when you hear about the law of attraction. I don't believe that. I don't believe that it works that way, because if the law of attraction worked that way, I could be driving down the highway and get hungry and attract a hamburger on my console. Can't do that. At least I've not been able to. What I think it's the law of creation. When you decide to have something, your view of the world changes. Let's say you decided to become, let's just say, a millionaire. That firm decision causes you to see opportunities you wouldn't see before. Because why would you look for them if you haven't decided to have it? And then so many people try to figure out how before they decide. So you got to decide first. Reasons come first, then the answers. But if you haven't had the firm decision or the reason, then the answers aren't going to show up. They're just not, because it didn't matter what, if you want to buy a new car. If you don't want to buy one, you're not going to go shopping and thinking about where you're going to go. If I wanted to get a new BMW, immediately I would go, I'd go to the Roseville Auto Mall and I would map out in my mind quickly how I get there. And I'd go there and shop for the car I want. So, but if I didn't want one, I'd never think about where's the closest BMW dealer. And so I think people, number one, they don't make a full commitment to have something. They're going to give it a try. And you hear that word a lot, but if you look it up in the dictionary, the definition is to struggle.
You another tip of the day from your posts. It is related to law of attraction. You mentioned, like, don't ever use the word busy.
Well, belief is defined as to have an opinion.
Isn't that
Everybody's got an opinion, but everybody, when you ask people what's the strongest, to think, to believe, or to know, which one's the strongest? Almost everybody chooses belief. But it's not. When you make a decision, now you know that you're going to accomplish this. A belief is an opinion, they're going to do it. And all beliefs are false. None of them are real. Until you decide they're real, then they're only real for you. Nobody has the same beliefs. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you're belief about money or belief about God or belief whatever. Nobody has this exactly same beliefs. And none of them are true until you decide they are. I mean, you could even say, well, I believe the sun comes up in the east. Well, who called an east? I don't know. But I mean, some of those things are logical, but I'm talking about what you plan to accomplish in your life and do in your life, and what you believe to be true. And even truth is not true. It's same for everybody. One person can walk in this room and say, it's kind of chilly in here. The next person walks in and is going, it's pretty warm in here.
it's pretty
Which is true.
it's
Both
relative.
of them, or neither
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. Yeah.
So decision is so important in your life to decide. If you want to lose 50 pounds, you got to decide to do that, and you got to call yourself a thin person. I mean, you got to look at yourself, and then you've got to take action to make those changes. And every action you take moves you toward it or away from it. I don't care if you're trying to make $1 million or you're You're trying to lose 50 pounds. Every action is taking you toward it or away from it. And you've got to decide, because there's no gray area. Somebody says, well, I want to lose 50 pounds, but I really enjoy eating a Big Mac once a month. That's okay. I'm not judging that. Is it taking you where you want to go or not? And you have to answer one or the other. And maybe it doesn't hurt you, but it's not taking you where you want to go. I can tell you that.
Mm.
So those are questions. And sometimes you mentioned letting go, making a choice to take a different route, letting go of that route to take this one, letting go of that Big Mac to get something healthy. So that's part of letting go too. But the more you practice it, the more it becomes a habit pattern, because we all have developed a habit pattern to hang on. Those emotional things that we go through in our lives, and we hang on to that stuff. Just like in the first 6 years of your life and my life, we all developed a core belief that we have about ourselves that we don't know we have. We have no clue we have it. And it takes us right into adulthood. And you see people that are messed up out there, people that are doing well, people are, rich and famous. And then you see things within those people that aren't working.
To your point, I found a theory quite related to subconscious mind. Control your subconscious. You also refer to minds like it's a mind game, right? So control yourself, believe in yourself, let it go. It's all about managing your mind, right? And how does it start? Success starts inside you, as you say. Like if you want to lose 50 pounds weight, visualize yourself to be thin. If you want to earn $1 million, visualize yourself to be there. And then, no gray area, work towards it. So basically, you start to believe that you're already there.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make it possible and practical to get there eventually? By just believing it when it is not there. If I believe it's a protein shake, but it's not.
Let's just talk about money, because a good 90% of, at least in this country, don't have enough money to live comfortably. 90%, I would say. How do some people become a billionaire and other people struggle? Some people say, well, there's no opportunities around. But if you look around this room, somebody made millions on this cup. Somebody made millions getting the water into this building and other buildings they've done. Somebody made millions on these microphones and on this table and on those chairs and on those light bulbs and on those ceiling, on the carpet, on the sheetrock on the wall, everything, television. So there's no lack of opportunities. There's lack of creativity. There's lack of decision making. People create in their minds something, and then they don't take action, and 3 months later somebody else has taken it and gone with it because they didn't move on it. They didn't decide. And there's so many examples of that out there, of what people have done. You look at Microsoft or Amazon. Amazon at one point was an online library and in bankruptcy. And look at them now. I forget how much money that Bezos is earning daily or minute by minute. It's like millions every day.
Hundreds of
10
millions
million,
every day.
whatever. It's crazy, and they don't even have a real high profit margin. And then you look at Microsoft. They both started in their garage with some vision, and his vision, at Microsoft was to put a desktop computer on every desk in the world. He's pretty much done that. So, but you can get examples, everywhere. So it's deciding first that in money at least, it's deciding you want to have a certain thing. And I think maybe even more than just deciding to have it, take it to the next step and ask yourself why you want it. Because let's say I wanted a chauffeur-driven limousine. If I'd ask myself why I wanted it, I go, well, it might be practical if I'm traveling, go back and forth to the airport or whatever, but it also might be, I want to look good in it. And so why do I want to look good? I want to look good because I want people to notice me. So why do you want people to notice you? Well, I want people to notice me because I want more recognition and more friends in my life. Well, what do you want more friends in your life? Then I kind of remember when my mother used to hug me and tell me how much she loved me, and I think I want more love in my life, which is a long way from having a chauffeur-driven limousine. So if we get to the true end result of what we want, the essence of what we want or why we want it, that makes it even more powerful for you.
This is very powerful message, Jim. I'm sure it's like 5 whys theory to identify the purpose. Right? In business, we use it for identifying root causes for any mistake or any problem, any glitch, any process failure, anything like, okay, why happened? Then, okay, why we were doing it this way? And then who started doing it this way? I mean, 5 whys until we get to the reason most of the times. And you're exactly pointed to the same process to identify your purpose, which is more important to know to start believing for it.
Yeah.
And living for it.
Yeah.
This is very powerful.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what it is. If you want a big boat or you want a new home on the hill or you want an acreage or you want, why do you want that? Is it just to be noticed or is it really what you want?
I'm going to validate my my dreams this way now. This is exactly that what you mentioned, the title of your book, Cracking the Rich Code. And looks like you actually cracked the rich code. What is in that book? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Rich comes from the word to enrich or to reach out and accomplish something more in your life.
It's not just wealth.
It's not about money.
It's about...
It could be, but...
What you believe rich, it could be anything. It
could be rich
good
in health, rich in money, rich in relationships, rich in...
that's right.
Rich in your profession. I mean, it's got... But most people think rich is money because they don't have enough.
That's the most common definition of rich. But yeah, rich could be like success could be healthy life, healthy relationships. Rich is same thing.
Yeah. To me, health is the most important richness that you can have.
Yeah, rich and wealth are two different things.
Yeah. If you don't have... I went in for a little physical a couple of days ago, and the doctor, we were talking, and he said, most people your age, he said, they die of natural causes. I said, well, tell me what a natural cause is. And he goes, well, heart attack. I said, that's not natural. I said, that's a clogged artery.
Unfortunately, I just saw a news today, a 35 years guy, healthy guy, got a heart attack and died. Yeah, I'm back in India. I mean, it was a news today. Yeah, I feel bad about, like you said, people at such a young age getting heart attacks. And what's the point? Like, what is the age of heart attack? It's not a reason.
No, and I have my own philosophy. And number one is you have to, if you value your health, you better take care of it.
Oh, yeah.
You better take responsibility for it. Don't turn it over to somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe go in for a diagnosis or whatever, but you take responsibility for your health. I don't want somebody else treating me. If I got something wrong, I'm going to take care of it myself. Unless I break my arm or something, I don't want to reset my own arm, but I'll go in for, somebody to do that. But otherwise, I'll figure it out myself because and I never get sick for that reason. I just don't,
I mean,
and up here, I don't believe I can get sick. So
that's the driver. You mentioned you don't believe in law of attraction, but believing ourselves is not related to law of attraction.
No, I don't think the law of attraction is even real. I think it's the law of creation. I think that when we change our mind and make a decision to have something, we see those things right in front of our noses. We don't attract them. If the law of attraction worked, we'd all be cruising in our 1,000 or 100-foot yacht in the Caribbean someplace. And a lot of people that promote the law of attraction.
It's becoming a business these days.
Yeah, I just don't think you attract. You can be attractive, but I don't think that you bring those people to you. I think those people are already around you. If that's what you're looking for, a contact or something. I think they're already around you someplace, but you don't see them because you don't need to. A good example was, I walked 3 miles in the heat to sell a bucket of carpet shampoo for $20. I didn't know there was going to be an opportunity presented to me there. I had no clue. But you know what? In my mind, before I left, I said, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to get rich doing it. And in my mind, Rich was a millionaire at that time. I mean, and it was. I mean, at that time, that was a lot of money. I thought I could live the rest of my life on it.
And you were there in a year, in
Mhm.
1 year from that time.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Who would you give credit for that 1 year for you getting from 15 cents to $1 million?
Myself. Yes. Because I think people said, what inspired you to keep going? I said, inspiration and desperation. I didn't want to go back to where I was, and I was inspired to do something more with my life. And that's what moved me forward. I didn't have a mentor. I had the one guy that showed up and taught me what to do and what not to do. I guess that was a mentor. Never saw him again. Later, when in the direct sales business, I met Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was a trainer in that company. And later that company closed up, and Jim and I became good friends, and we ended up in a business partnership. So, I think things show up for you. And if you make the decision, I think I don't know, it's time, fate, circumstances, God, I don't know, that shows up and says, we might as well let him have it. He's not going to quit. Let's give him what he needs. Let's let it show up in his view. So it's, I don't have all the answers, but I didn't have somebody guiding me. I mean, I enjoyed Jim Rohn and his message. I never heard a message like that before until I attended one of his 3-hour trainings. There was the president of that company that I was with made one 15-minute talk that just changed everything for me. Just said one talk, and he said one quote that I never gave up. I've never lost that quote. One quote that he said, it was a Benjamin Disraeli quote. He said, "Nothing can resist the will of a human being that will stake even their existence on the extent of their purpose."
Well,
And that stuck with me. I mean, I put it on the back of my business cards and everything. I mean, it was like
nice.
that stuck with me.
Powerful.
Nothing can resist the will of a human being that will stake even their existence on the extent of the purpose. And I kind of did that when I made that decision, standing in my kitchen that day.
How to understand human behaviors. And there are challenges at that level also.
I've worked with over 300 companies as a advisor, consultant. You see in people, leaders, and there's leaders within companies. Sometimes the head of the company is the one holding it back. They don't want to dwell on that, so they suppress it. But when you suppress something, you're a little less happy. And if it's an ongoing problem, you become not a very happy person.
What's the key message of the book?
I created the book, the series, because I discovered that coaches and speakers, I read someplace years back that 92% of them fail. So I thought, what can I do to help these people? And I came up with the idea of doing a book because I think credibility is number one for people. I've had a top marketing expert in our industry. I've had a voice coach. I've had an AI expert. I bring these people in and they help our co-authors become better.
Where do you see yourself today? Do you still have dreams? Do you still have your goals to achieve? Or
I've never set goals.
You never set goals?
I've never set goals. I don't write things down. I can remember them. If I'm going to write a book, I don't need to write it down. I'm just going, okay, I'm going to write a book and I'll get on with it. When's it going to be finished? When I'm done. And something's a priority, I get right on it and get it done. I've just never had. Somebody just asked me recently, where do you think you're going to be in 5 years? I said, I have no idea where I'm going to be next month, let alone 5 years. So I don't plan out like that. And I know people that have to have vision boards and all kinds of stuff to remind them of what they want to accomplish. Because here's the problem. Because of the core belief that we have about ourselves that was developed in that first 6 years of life, because of that, we decide we're going to have something, and then we turn around and make up a fear to keep us from getting it. Fear comes in a whole different types of disguises.
Yes.
It comes in procrastination.
Yeah.
It comes in putting things off. It comes in struggle. It comes in just so many different costumes.
That's from where we started this conversation, the fear factor of things, right? And that's killing careers, that's killing opportunities.
Yeah.
People stay in their comfort zone, or you can say no risk zone, and they stay there.
But if you want something in your life, you got to decide to have it, number one, 100%. Then you've got to take action toward it. And some people with fear, they take action, but then they let the fear deter them to going in the wrong direction. But they make up that fear to keep them off. So you got to make a decision. You got to take action. Even if you're beginning something, there's something you can do that will move that needle forward while you're getting ready. But so many people are getting ready to get going and they never get going because they think they've got to get everything perfect before they can execute. And then when you execute, you're going to come face to face with your own comfort zone. And that's going to cause you to have to step out and experience some discomfort. Because anything new you're doing, you've never done it before, it's going to be a little uncomfortable going into it. And then when you experience that discomfort, that's the time you decide what needs to let go of and how do I keep moving forward? What do I need to let go of? It's simple stuff. It really is. There's nothing complicated. We just complicate it.
Let's talk about your book, Cracking the Rich Code.
Okay.
The messages and like how you're at volume
20.
And it's yearly.
No. I've published in 3 years. I published 10 volumes. In about a year, I published almost 10 more in the last year.
It's one of the bestseller books.
Always #1 international bestseller. 18 so far. We're getting ready to do the campaign on 19, and then 20's starting to build.
What's the key message of the book? Other than, title tells it, but like what are
I created the book, the series, because I discovered that people in my industry, that coaches, speakers, consultants, and some entrepreneurs, well, they're all entrepreneurs, but some that are in business, a different type of business, but at least coaches and speakers, I read someplace years back that 92% of them fail. That kind of set me back a little bit because I was wondering, why would 92% fail? They got to be, they're certified, they got education, they got experience maybe in corporate, and they bring it into the private sector. They're a coach for leadership or whatever it might be. And I thought, why are they failing? I started to look at my own career and what I've done in the past. It applies, but it applies differently today, or you apply it differently today than you would 45 years ago. So I thought, what can I do to help these people? And I came up with the idea of doing a book because I think credibility is #1 for people. Why would I listen to this person if I never heard of them, don't know who they are? What gives me the right to listen to them? It's just like you take Michael Jordan. Okay, if you took his tennis shoes and took his name off of him, how much do you think he'd sell?
Yeah.
Like nothing. But yet he sells like, I don't know how many billions a year that he sells in shoes because his name's on them.
Yeah.
So who says so besides you? Well, Michael Jordan does. He wears them when he plays basketball. So it creates more value. So I thought, well, if I put together this book with multiple co-authors in it, 20 in each is actually what I have. And if I can make it a #1 international bestseller, if I could get somebody to endorse it, which I got Tony Robbins to endorse it.
That's another thing I want to talk
If
about.
I get somebody to write the foreword, I got Brian Tracy to write the foreword, who's very big out there as well. And I send press releases out that get picked up by major TV stations all over the world, all of the major ones in North America. And once they pick it up, they feature it on their websites. So now our co-authors could say they've been featured on ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, or whatever. And they're endorsed by Tony Robbins, and they're in a book where Brian Tracy's written the foreword, and it's a #1 international bestseller. That's a lot of credibility for somebody.
Absolutely.
So, and then they write a chapter based upon what they're passionate about. So we may have a chapter on leadership, one on health and wellness, one on relationships, one on money issues, one on, whatever. And anything to do with helping people live a better life is what's in that book. And then in addition to the book, I put together a mastermind that we do monthly, and I have special guests come on. Most of them are well-known or highly accomplished and are there to help our co-authors become better, either personally or business-wise or both. I've had Brian Tracy, I've had Les Brown, I've had Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup. I've had, some of these top people out there, but I've also had like the #1 social media expert that's been nominated #1 15 years in a row. I've had a top marketing expert in our industry. I've had a voice coach. I've had an AI expert. I've had, I bring these people in and they help our co-authors become better. So our whole objective is to take them from the 8% or from the 92% that fail to the 8% that make it, and maybe even at the top of the 8%. And so that's why I created that. And now we have right at 400 co-authors, and they're all over the world. I mean, 85% are in the U.S., but we have them all over. We have them in Vietnam and Malaysia and Singapore and South Africa and Australia and India and Pakistan and Brazil and all over Europe. So, it's spread worldwide because of what we're doing. And so if anybody's listening that's a coach or a speaker, we should connect, because it's a great way to expand your market reach. And that's why we did it, because if I can help some of those people expand their market, they're going to reach people I could never reach, and that's going to make the world a better place.
Yeah, I'll mention link to your book and your website to the description. Yeah. Anything about you wanna discuss about leadership and like how to understand human behaviors? You said like you were good at understanding human behaviors and you don't understand the language. I mean, more than the human behaviors.
The
So
behavior.
leadership, since like majority of our listeners and viewers are from business background and they lead companies and executives, and there are challenges at that level also, like
course.
managing a lot of people.
Yeah, I've worked with over 300 companies as a advisor, consultant.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's discuss that.
and, you see in people leaders, and there's leaders within companies. Sometimes the head of the company is the one holding it back. Sometimes it's middle management that's stopping certain things, and they don't even think they are. They don't know they are. They have no idea. So I relate that back to that first 6 years of somebody's life. And it was a good example. Let's say somebody doesn't get the love and attention they feel like they deserve as a child, that first 6 years. What does a child want in that first 6 years? They want to be happy, they want to learn new things, they want to have fun, and they want to be loved. Pretty much it. Pretty simple stuff. But what if they don't get the love and attention? What do they do with that? They learn how to suppress it. Some kids are abandoned or lose their parents, grow up in orphanages, foster homes. Some kids are abused verbally, physically, emotionally, sexually. Some grow up in a household with one parent abusing the other, or they argue all the time. And that threatens their safety and security. They don't want to dwell on that, so they suppress it. But when you suppress something, you're a little less happy. And if it's an ongoing problem, you become not a very happy person. And it shows up in school. You start to see people break up into, the kids break up in little groups, that they relate to. The bullies hang out together, and the one that needs attention's got a group around them and stuff like that. But they take that on into adulthood, into business, into their personal life. Somebody that didn't get the love and attention, they may end up being walked on in business, just never speaking up, because they don't feel that their comments mean anything, that their opinion means anything. So they don't speak up. They get in a meeting and
Yeah, in business and in organizations, it's typically like people don't have agreements on a lot of decisions. There are conflicts, there are different mindsets, different priorities that typically are cause of conflicts.
Yeah.
And there are tough people, there are groupism, a lot of stuff. But senior leaders are responsible towards the vision of the company and to keep going forward in order to increase the ROI and keep growing, right, on the business side. But there are fires all over the places behind the scenes in the
There is.
organization.
But some people are good at setting fires. Some are good at putting them out. Some are good leaders.
How to spot it? How to like start fixing all those? I mean, any like high level overarching message that you want to give?
It's back to the power of letting go. You know, when people, if you discover, well, I'll give you an example. I went into a company quite a few years back, and they wanted me to interview everybody in the company, and they had about, I don't know, 40 employees, and they were producing, or direct sales company. They were producing about 400,000 a month, barely making it ends meet, and they said, well, can you help us? And I said, yes. And he said, and we made a deal, and it wasn't, I didn't think about whether they could afford me or not. I just put it out what I charge. And he said, what do you charge? I said, I want a retainer for 25,000 a month and 2% of increased growth for 5 years. And he said, that's a lot. I said, it's because I'm going to do a lot for you. And he said, I don't know if we can afford you. And I said, well, you really can't afford not to do it. I said, because you've been stuck for years where you are. And he finally said, okay. Then he said, I want you to start interview everybody in the company. Yeah. And I did. And I came back to him, and he said, what'd you think? And I said, you got some good people. And I said, yeah, I'm a little, I don't quite get him. And I said, I think he could be trouble later on. And I mentioned who he was, and he said, oh, hell no, he's like our son. I said, well, whatever, just keep an eye on him. Turns out later, he was skimming off $40,000 a month of product and sending it to Japan and keeping the money. And then, but when
Speaking money.
yeah, easy money. And I said, but you need to fire your president. He was the CEO. And I said, that's the one that needs to go. And he said, why? I said, well, she's a controller. And I said, she's a micromanager. And I said, she'll know every phone call that comes into this office. As you expand, you can't do that. I said, she's keeping you alive now, but she's going to kill you later on. He said, that's my wife. I said, I know. And he said, I can't fire her. I said, why not? He said, because her parents funded the company. So I said, okay. Well, I took them in 2 years to $23 million a month from $400,000 a month. And about a year and a half later, they closed up. She put them out of business. They sold out for little or nothing, actually. But, you have people like that, and a lot of it's their upbringing. They don't know that they're doing anything wrong. It's just who they are. And a lot of people they have shortcomings, and they don't see value in themselves, and they'll hold the company down, even if it's their own company. Leaders come in a lot of different packages. I think everybody's a leader because everybody sets an example. Could be an example of what not to do, or an example of what to do, right down to the family. If you're a leader of your family, then that's where it starts.
So the message is decide in favor of the company, even if you have to let your favorite people go.
Yeah. If you're going to build a company, you've got to do that. You've got to,
But sometimes, like favorite people, we always go biased for them. I mean, we always like them because of different reasons.
I mean, you hate to fire somebody unless they're just mean and ugly. But, you'd hate to fire somebody. It's their livelihood. But, your company's your livelihood. If I have to, I don't remember the word he used, but like reprimand an employee twice, the third time is being fired. He said, I'm okay with them the first time they made a mistake. If they make the mistake again, I warn them.
Yep.
And if they make it a third time, they're gone. He said, I don't put up with it. He said, you can't.
I think that's the right thing. Everyone deserves second chance. That's okay.
Yeah.
But third chance is insane. It's stupid.
It's just like somebody screw you over one time.
Yeah.
They screw you over twice. It's your fault.
Exactly. Yeah. In business, it has to be that way.
Yeah, it does. It really
Business
does.
is a dirty game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the tip of the day?
If we're wrapping up here, I'll leave a good message that I think that everybody should tune into.
Please.
Yeah. And it's a simple one. I try to keep everything simple so everybody can understand it, including me.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine and I used to read some of the same books. And when we did, we would get on the phone and talk about them. And he called me one day. It's been about 35 years ago. He called me and he said, would you pick up this book and read page 89? And I said, okay. So go to my library and I pick it up and I read page 89. And he said, I want to talk about it. So we spent an hour and a half talking about that one page. And at the end of our conversation, he said, hey, Jim, he said, before you go, he said, do you know what the word resourceful means? I'm going,
Resourceful?
resourceful. Yeah. I said, I don't know. Never thought about it. I said, maybe using your imagination or be more productive. I said, I don't know why. He said, well, it's just an interesting word. And I said, yeah, I guess so. And that was it. We hung up. A few hours later, I was driving home from my office. I couldn't quit thinking about the word. I mean, it was just ringing in my mind over and over and over. It's like a song you can't quit hearing.
It happens. Yeah. Yeah. Songs, they're stuck. Yeah.
And so I get home 35 years ago. We didn't have internet or anything. So I went to the dictionary and looked up the word resourceful. And it was defined as once again full of source. So resourceful, once again full of source. I thought, interesting, depending on what you think source is. And so I looked up source in the dictionary. And it says where all things originate. Not some things, but all things.
All things.
I thought, that's interesting. Depending on what you think source is. And then I went to the bookstore the next morning to pick up some books I'd ordered. And I said, do you have an origin of words? A book that has, yeah. So I looked it up and I looked up source. I couldn't find any definition of it. And I looked in two more different dictionaries. Couldn't find anything different. And for some reason, I was obsessed with that. I had to find another definition of source. I don't know why. And this went on for like a year and a half. And everywhere I'd go that I felt like I might be able to find something, a library or whatever, nothing. And I was in the UK doing an event, a small village, Chester, in the UK. And I went out for a walk during my 2-hour break one day. And I see this building with a little sign on the back that said antique books. I thought, I know they've got older books here than we have in the U.S., so I'm going to go in. I'm kind of intrigued by old books. First book I see is a dictionary about this thick. It's all tattered around the edges and stuff. And I wished I'd looked at the publication date, but I didn't. I don't know how old it was. But anyway, it had a sign on it that said, do not touch, or do not open. And I stood there for like 2 or 3 minutes looking at this dictionary and thinking, do not open. And I thought, that's got to be for people in the UK, so I'm going to open it. And I was prepared to buy it, I think. I guess. I don't know what they were going to pay. I had to pay for it. I opened it up carefully. The pages were kind of brown looking, old looking. And I look up the word source. And I see some of the same things I'd seen before. And suddenly I see one definition said source, love. Defined as love. I went, wow. Once again, full of love.
Never related source with love in my life.
And I thought, why is it? I thought, that's fascinating. But how do you, and I left there after that. And I'm walking down the street and I'm thinking, how do you apply that to your life? And I thought about it for a while and I thought, oh, when you decide to have something, you fall in love with it. You set a goal to accomplish, you fall in love with it. That creates the passion to keep you moving toward it. I thought, that's powerful. I thought, that's something I could use when I go back in the room and start, because I just discovered that. And I thought, wow, that is incredible. So I walked on about another 10 minutes, feeling pretty good about it. Then suddenly it hit me. I thought, wait a minute. If all things originate in source, all things originate in love, where does fear come from? And I thought, oh, there's a flaw in this whole thing. Fear can't originate in love. I walked on for about another 10 minutes thinking about that. And suddenly it hit me. I thought, oh, I get it. You fall in love with fear.
Mm-hmm.
You actually create that fear. Because we have the ability as humans, we have free will. We can create anything we want. And we get support for that. We're in partnerships with the universal energy, God, source, whatever you want to call it. We're in partnerships in some way. And we can create anything we want from that. And fear is one of those things. And I thought about it. I thought, that's so true that people create a vision of what they want to accomplish and make a decision to have it, and they turn right around and make up a fear to keep them from it. And that's why people don't move forward and keep going in the direction that they wanted to go in. That fear just takes over and runs their life. And then I left there the next day. I flew to Toronto, and myself and a fellow that was doing the event with me, we went out for a walk in Toronto. We went out a couple of miles. We were a little late getting back, so we're walking pretty fast. And I'm 6'4", he's 6'2" or so. So we're moving in and out of tourists and stuff. And suddenly I feel somebody right here on my shoulder. I mean, literally, I'm looking straight ahead, and I could see this guy right here. I could smell him too. I mean, he was pretty rank smelling, and he was in step with me. And I thought he was going to end up tripping me or something. I mean, it was like, and I was just about to turn around and say, "Hey, buddy, back off just a little bit." But just as I started to do that, he said, "And God created man." And he had another voice coming from him that said, "Yeah, I know that too." And he said, "But then God created woman." He said, "Oh, yeah, I know that too." And he said, "But then God created fruit." And the other voice goes, "What does fruit have to do with anything?" He said, "Well, inside the fruit, there's a seed." And he said, "If you plant it, it will grow. And if you don't, it won't." And then he turned and went the other direction. And I started thinking about that. I thought, it's kind of interesting that when you decide to have something, you're planting a seed. And if you plant a seed in a garden, if you plant a radish seed, you're not going to get corn. You're going to get a radish. If you take care of it. You may not get anything if you don't take care of it.
Sure.
How do you take care of that when it grows before the radish is time to eat?
Yep.
You keep the weeds out, because the weeds are the negative side of the plant that you want to grow and nourish. Just like the weeds in our mind are the doubt, uncertainty, and all the fears and things that we make up in our mind. And I thought, you got to pluck those out. That's the power of letting go. And it's a habit pattern that we have to develop, just like the habit that we have of hanging on. We've been taught to hang on. Now we can learn to let go. And the more you do, I've been doing it for 35 years. And it's pretty hard to get me upset, nervous, anxious. I just don't do it. I don't go there, because there's nothing there. I mean, except more of the same. So why focus on it? Yeah, it's like Jim Rohn used to tell this story about a guy walking down the street, and he sees this guy with a garden. And he walks over and he said, "Wow, you and God have a beautiful garden here." And the guy goes, "Yeah, you should have seen it when God had it by himself." It's there's work involved, and it's staying on target. And we have a beautiful garden. We've still got tomatoes growing. It's almost November. But my wife is the green thumb of the two of us, but it's fun to have. But you got to keep the weeds out.
Keep the weeds out, let it go, and just get rid of your fear. Yeah. Don't use the word busy.
Yeah, and I did an exercise many years ago when I used to tell people, make sure that once you decide what direction you take is either going to take you toward what you want or away from it. No gray area.
No gray area.
And I was thinking about that one day, and I thought, well, what do we do to stay on track, and how do we know if we're off track? So I took 30 days, and I wrote down what I did for the last 15 minutes for 30 days. If I was with you for an hour, I wouldn't write them down every 15 minutes while I was there, but I would walk away and put it in my day timer. Met with Nav, or had lunch, things like that. If I slept, 8 hours, I'd write down, 24 times. If I slept 9 hours, if I slept 6 hours. So it in 30 days, you were shocked at what you spent your time on.
Yes.
Totally. If within a week, you'll be shocked. Even sometimes a day, you're going, "Wow, I wasted 3 hours today."
Yeah.
And that could have been way more
Yeah, but
productive.
we just keep going in the flow
See,
and never acknowledge the time we are
so
spending.
if
on
you
what
want a
we-
good time management course, that'll do it for you.
Great conversations, Jim. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you.
My
for
pleasure.
Great insights. And yeah, I'm thrilled from
Yeah.
this conversation.
Awesome. That's great. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I truly appreciate your time and attention. If something in this episode sparked a new idea, shifted your thinking, or even just made you nod along, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We are just getting started. We might have made mistakes. I promise we will improve. In every episode, I'm going to dive deeper into such conversations that impact us. And hey, if you're vibing with what we are building here, share it with someone you trust. That's how good ideas spread. Until next time, think holistic, think economics, think fast, and keep leading forward.